In a strange, quiet miracle, an 800-year-old prophecy is fulfilled. When Jesus heals a deaf mute, it isn't just about ears opening, it's about Isaiah's Messiah stepping into Gentile territory and proving exactly who he is. We're exploring Mark chapter 7, verses 31 through 37. Let's read verse 31. Then he returned from the region of Tyre and went through Sidon to the Sea of Galilee, in the region of the Decapolis. After Jesus had his controversial talk with the Syrophoenician woman, he traveled southeast, a long distance to the Decapolis, a Gentile region where he cast out the legion of demons and the 2,000 pigs died. Look at verse 32. And they brought to him a man who was deaf and had a speech impediment, and they begged him to lay his hand on him. Who are they? Mark doesn't say, but we can assume by the details of verse 31, it's the locals of the Decapolis. They brought a man with two problems. He's deaf, and he had a speech impediment. The Greek word translated speech impediment literally means he had a thick tongue. The man was shut off from communicating with others in two ways. He couldn't receive their words, and he couldn't effectively give his words to them. The locals brought him to Jesus and begged him to lay hands on the man, to heal him. There's a pattern developing in Mark's Gospel, that of people appealing to Jesus on behalf of someone else. Here's a list of prior occurrences. The paralytic, brought by 4 men. Jairus pleads for his dying daughter. People beg Jesus to let the sick touch his garment. The Syrophoenician woman appeals for her demon-possessed daughter. People bring Jesus a deaf man with a speech impediment. So what? In Mark's Gospel, there is value in intercession on behalf of others. Let's move on to verse 33. And taking him aside from the crowd privately, he put his fingers into his ears, and after spitting, touched his tongue. This is an unusual event, a private miracle. The closest other example is Jesus limiting the witnesses to the raising of Jairus' daughter to her parents and 3 disciples. Jesus did 3 things. He put his fingers in the man's ears. Why? To show that he is addressing his hearing. He spit. In the ancient world, saliva was thought to have healing properties, so spitting communicated non-verbally that Jesus was acting in a healing way. And he touches the man's tongue to show he's addressing his speech impediment. Jesus hasn't done anything like this in any of the other miracles. Why do these things now? The man can't hear Jesus talk, but he can understand by this combination of actions that Jesus is healing his deafness and his difficulty speaking. Jesus met the man exactly at the place of his limitations. But why did he take him away privately? People tend toward superstition, and if the crowd saw what Jesus did, they might interpret the actions as some sort of magic. But the miracle isn't about the fingers in the ears, the spit, or touching his tongue. How do we know this? Look at verses 34 to 35. And looking up to heaven, he sighed and said to him, Ephphatha, that is, be opened. And his ears were opened, his tongue was released, and he spoke plainly. Did you see it? The physical actions of verse 33 didn't heal the man. The authoritative command of Jesus did, and that command was not in the common language of the Gentiles, Koine Greek, but in Aramaic, the language of the Jews. Jesus, the Jewish Messiah, issues an Aramaic command to open the ears of a deaf Gentile. Be opened, he commanded, and what was restricting his hearing was removed, and his tongue was loosened, and he spoke plainly. All 3 of the man's issues were resolved. Look at verse 36. And Jesus charged them to tell no one, but the more he charged them, the more zealously they proclaimed it. Again, Jesus tries to keep the messianic secret. Don't tell anyone. But as always, it has the opposite effect, and the word spreads like wildfire. Is Jesus engaging in reverse psychology? Let me know what you think in the comments. Look at verse 37. And they were astonished beyond measure, saying, He has done all things well. He even makes the deaf hear and the mute speak. Look at what they said. He has done all things well. What does this sound like? The creation story. Each day, God did something, and it was declared good. The crowd sees Jesus heal the deaf man and considers the other things they've heard he has done and speaks of it like the creation story. He acts, and it is good. In a real sense, Jesus is restoring damaged creation. The man was restored to the intended state, able to hear and speak. And it is good. When they say, "He even makes the deaf hear and the mute speak," it is first a recognition of what just happened, but more importantly, it alludes to Isaiah 35:5 and 6, which is a prophecy of the Messianic age. The deaf will hear, the mute will shout for joy. By phrasing it this way, Mark tells his readers that the Gentiles of the Decapolis are recognizing Jesus as the prophesied Jewish Messiah. What can we take away from this story? It's about more than the deaf man and his healing. The Gentile man was unable to communicate until Jesus issued the command, "Be opened." And it not only opened the man's ears, it symbolically opens the way for the Gentiles to receive the Jewish Messiah. They see Jesus as restoring creation and doing Messiah things. And in the next story, Jesus will repeat the miracle of feeding the multitude, except the crowd will be Gentiles and the math will be different. You won't want to miss it. Thank you for watching So What Scripture. Let your friends know about these videos.